What happens when true love must be shared? At the request of the woman who owns his heart, Lucas married Helena, a woman later diagnosed as infertile. Family pressure pushed Helena into making a desperate, almost insane agreement to find another woman for Lucas to marry. Helena chose Clara, an innocent woman forced to accept a contract. Lend your womb, give us an heir, then disappear. But the perfect plan collapsed. Lucas's sincere love for the unborn child slowly shifted the balance of affection in the house. Helena, once the queen of the home, found her place threatened. Jealousy turned into rage. Emotional betrayal escalated into tragedy. Clara's life and the baby she carried hung by a thread. Would the queen be able to redeem her sins? Witness a story of redemption, sacrifice, and an unexpected new destiny. Watch the full story now. Before we get into the story, don't forget to say hi in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. And make sure to hit the subscribe button on Stories with Meaning channel so you won't miss our next powerful story. The verdict at the end of the 5th year. The candle, shaped like the number 5 on top of the Black Forest cake, melted slowly, dripping pale pink wax onto the cold white cream beneath it. The wax looked like tears, or perhaps blood from an unseen wound. Helena stared at the small flame with hollow eyes. 5 years. For 5 years, she had sat in the same chair at the same dining table, facing the same man. Lucas, her husband. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, a milestone, half a decade of marriage that for most couples would be filled with the laughter of children running around the table. But in their luxury apartment in Manhattan, there was silence. The ticking wall clock sounded like a judge's gavel, counting down the last remnants of their patience. "Hell, sweetheart." Lucas's soft baritone voice pulled her back to reality. His warm hand wrapped around her cold fingers on the table. He smiled, the smile that had made her fall in love all those years ago. But tonight, it looked forced. Fine lines of exhaustion framed his eyes. "You're drifting off again," he said gently, rubbing the back of her hand with his thumb. "Blow out the candle before it melts away." Helena forced a smile, inhaled deeply, and blew. Whoosh! The flame died. Thin smoke curled upward, carrying a faint burnt scent. "Happy 5th anniversary," Helena whispered. "Happy anniversary, my wife," Lucas replied, leaning down to kiss her forehead. The kiss lingered, warm, reverent, full of gratitude, but to Helena, it felt like an apology. After the awkward cake-cutting ritual, Helena could no longer ignore the weight in her blazer pocket. The white envelope bearing the logo of St. Mary's Reproductive Center burned against her skin. She had carried it all day like a ticking bomb. "Lucas," her voice trembled. He stopped eating, set his fork down, and looked at her with full attention. He always noticed shifts in her tone. "The lab results from Dr. Carter this afternoon?" he asked. Helena nodded stiffly. Her fingers shook as she placed the envelope beside the untouched cake. "Read it." Lucas hesitated. He knew this wasn't just paper. It was a verdict on 1,885 days of prayers, hundreds of hormone injections, dozens of failed cycles, artificial insemination attempts, and 2 IVF procedures that ended before a heartmate ever formed. With steady hands, he opened the envelope. His eyes scanned the medical terms, but Helena didn't need to see his face. She knew the words by heart. Premature ovarian failure, egg reserves depleted, natural pregnancy impossible, IVF success rate less than 1%. Silence ruled again, this time heavier. Lucas placed the paper down slowly. He didn't cry, he rarely did, but his shoulders slumped, as if a crushing weight had just been added. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Hell! She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. not in rejection, but reflexive frustration. He stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the glowing skyline of Manhattan. "There's still 1%, he said, his back to her. "We can try again. We can go to Boston or Toronto." "Lucas," Helena interrupted, her voice hoarse, "our savings are almost gone. We've spent over $35,000 in the last 2 years, and Dr. Carter said, my uterus," her voice broke, "my uterus is rejecting pregnancy. The walls are too thin after the last procedure. Even if conception happens, I won't be able to carry it." Lucas turned, his face flushed with anger and grief. "Then what? We give up? We adopt?" "I don't mind adoption," Helena cried, "but your mother does." The name finally escaped her lips. "Mrs. Whitmore. Your mother wants your bloodline, Lucas. You want an heir to the Whitmore name. You're the only son. Your sisters don't count to her. She will never accept an adopted child. You know that. We've talked about this 1,000 times. Lucas fell silent. He knew she was right. The next evening's dinner at the Whitmore family estate felt like a trial. The long oak dining table was filled with gourmet dishes, but Helena had no appetite. Mrs. Whitmore sat at the head of the table, elegant in silk, hair perfectly styled. Her sharp eyes shifted between Helena and Lucas. "So," she said coldly, breaking the clink of silverware, "5 years." "Mother, please," Lucas sighed. "We're eating." "Eating without results," Mrs. Whitmore snapped. She folded her napkin decisively. "I'm old, Lucas. Your father is gone. Who will inherit the company? Who will pray for me when I'm dead?" "We're trying," Lucas argued. "Trying until Helena hits menopause." She gazed at Helena directly. "A woman's purpose is to be a mother. If the soil is barren, the farmer must find another field." Helena clenched her skirt under the table until her knuckles whitened. She wanted to scream, but the medical report sealed her lips. She was barren. "Enough!" Lucas slammed his fork down. "I will not hear another word about remarriage or polygamy. My wife is Helena, period." He stood and pulled Helena with him. "We're leaving." As they walked out, Mrs. Whitmore's voice followed them, cold, threatening. "If there's no grandchild next year, don't blame me when I cut you out of the inheritance." The drive home felt endless. Rain poured as if the sky itself mourned Helena's fate. At a red light, they stopped beside an old motorcycle. A small family huddled under a single rain poncho, a father driving, a mother holding on, and between them a laughing toddler. Lucas stared. Helena saw it then, the longing in his eyes. Lucas wanted to be a father. That night, Helena made her decision. Sitting on the edge of their bed, she took a deep breath. "Lucas," she whispered into the darkness. "Go to sleep," he replied tiredly. "Marry another woman." Silence. He turned slowly. "What did you say?" "I'm serious," Helena said calmly. "I'm the one asking." "You're out of your mind. What if I choose her?" Lucas froze. Helena took his cold hands, her eyes filled with tears, but unbreakable resolve. "I love you too much to trap you in my fate."
"If you marry the woman your mother chooses, I will be pushed aside," Helena said, her voice shaking. "I will be discarded. But if you marry the woman I choose, I can still be your wife. I can still hold my position in this house." Lucas pulled his hand away roughly. "Helena, this is a marriage, not a corporation." "It's the same thing," Helena half screamed as tears finally spilled. "This marriage is bankrupt without an heir. I've already prepared the candidate. She's young, healthy, fertile, and she owes me her life. She won't resist. Once the child is born, she'll leave. The child will be ours." Lucas stared at his wife in horror. What he saw was no longer desperation alone. It was desperation mutating into a dark obsession. Who, he demanded, who is insane enough to agree to something like this? Helena wiped her tears, reached for her phone on the nightstand, opened a photo, and shoved it toward him. Her name is Clara. She's an intern at my firm. She needs money for her father's heart surgery. I hold the key, Lucas. Lucas looked at the screen. A young woman with a bare face and an innocent smile stood in the photo, taken during a company charity event. Her expression was pure, so painfully different from Helena's calculating gaze that night. That night, in the 5th year of their marriage, Helena didn't just open Pandora's box, she burned the bridge beneath their feet. She forced Lucas onto a road he had never imagined, a road towards polygamy, rejection, and tears. The phone lay on the bed, Clara's smiling face glowing softly, as if mocking the chaos unfolding in the master bedroom. Lucas felt sick, angry, repulsed. "Have you lost your mind, Helena?" he hissed. His voice was low, but it vibrated through the room. "You talk about her like she's a commodity. She's a human being. She has dignity." Helena didn't move. She remained seated on the edge of the bed, pale, but her eyes burned with frightening resolute. "I'm not buying her," she said. "I'm helping her." Her voice trembled as she continued. "Clara needs $13,000 for her father's bypass surgery next week. She has nothing. She's just an intern earning minimum wage. If I offered this agreement, she saves her father, and we save our marriage." "What kind of marriage is saved by putting a third person in our bed?" Lucas shouted. The room exploded into chaos. Lucas grabbed the glass of water from the nightstand and hurled it at the wall. It shattered violently, shards scattering across the thick carpet, glittering under the bedside lamp. Helena flinched, but did not retreat. Lucas paced, gripping his own hair in frustration. "This is adultery, Helena. Adultery wrapped in religion. I can't do this. I can't touch a woman I don't love." Helena stood slowly and walked toward him, ignoring the broken glass beneath her bare feet. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressing her cheek against his tense back. "Love can grow from habit," she whispered. Her tears soaked into his shirt. "And if you can't love her, treat it like a duty, like donating your seed, for me, for us." Lucas tore her arms away and turned to face her, his eyes wounded. "You're selfish," he said bitterly. "You think you're doing this for me? No, you're doing this because you're terrified of losing your status as Mrs. Whittemore. You're afraid my mother will throw you away." The words struck harder than any slap. Helena froze. Her lips trembled. Lucas was right. Part of her was acting out of sheer terror, fear of being alone, fear of becoming a discarded, infertile wife in society's eyes. "Yes," Helena screamed back, finally collapsing. "I'm afraid, Lucas. I'm afraid you'll leave. If your mother chooses your wife, she'll pick one of her socialite friends' daughters. Educated, rich, beautiful, equal to you. If that woman enters this house, I'm finished." She grabbed Lucas's collar, shaking him. "But if it's Clara, she's nobody. Poor, orphaned by her mother, naive, obedient. She'll never dare challenge me. She'll never steal your heart completely. I can control her. Please understand my logic." Lucas looked at the woman he'd been married to for 5 years. He didn't see a monster. He saw a drowning woman clawing at anything just to breathe. Without a word, Lucas grabbed his car keys from the dresser. "Where are you going?" Helena asked desperately. "Out," he replied coldly. "I need air that isn't poisoned." He slammed the bedroom door behind him, leaving Helena collapsed on the floor amid broken glass. 3 days of Cold War. For 3 days, they lived like strangers. Lucas came home late and left before dawn. He slept in the guest room. Their communication was reduced to short messages. "I'll be home late. Dinner's on the table.
Don't forget to pay the electricity bill." But Helena didn't stop. She launched a silent siege. On the first morning, Lucas found a blue folder on the passenger seat of his car. Inside was Clara's complete profile. Clara Evans, 23 years old, associate degree in administration, address, outskirts of Newark, New Jersey. Attached on the last page was a hospital bill from a cardiac center, an outrageous amount, stamped past due. On the second morning, Helena placed Clara's ultrasound results on the dining table. Perfect, healthy, fertile. Lucas crushed the paper and threw it into the trash without reading, but the image had already lodged in his mind. Helena knew Lucas was a logical man. She was letting logic wage war against his conscience. The final blow. The climax came on the third day, Saturday. Lucas sat in the living room staring blankly at the news when the doorbell rang. The housekeeper opened the door. "Good morning," a voice said sharply. "Is Lucas home?" "Mrs. Whittemore." Helena froze on the balcony. Moments later, she entered the living room, fixing her hair and forcing her best smile. Mrs. Whittemore sat upright on a single-seater sofa, intimidating as ever. Beside her sat a beautiful young woman dressed in elegant designer clothes, a luxury handbag resting on her lap. "Lucas," Mrs. Whittemore said flatly. "Helena." "Who is this?" Lucas asked stiffly. "This is Clarissa Whitman, Aunt Rose's daughter. She just finished her master's degree in Melbourne." Clarissa smiled politely and extended her hand. Mrs. Whittemore continued, her gaze briefly flicking to Helena's stomach. "She's an excellent cook, and more importantly, she comes from a very fertile family. Her sister has 4 children. Her younger brother has 3. Helena felt nauseous. "Mother, why are you here?" Lucas asked, struggling to stay calm. "I won't waste time," Mrs. Whittemore said coldly. "I'm giving you 1 month. If Helena isn't pregnant by next month, or you haven't decided to remarry, I will proceed legally with divorce proceedings and asset division." "Mother!" Helena cried. "Silence," Mrs. Whittemore snapped. "You've had 5 years. Enough." She turned back to Lucas. "Clarissa is willing to become your second wife or your replacement wife. Your choice. I will not let the Whittemore bloodline end with you." Then she left. Clarissa followed. The ticking bomb was set. Lucas sat frozen on the couch, rage burning beneath his skin. Helena collapsed at his feet. "Now you see, don't you?" she sobbed. "If you don't choose, she will. If Clarissa comes into this house, I'm dead. She has everything. She'll destroy me." She grabbed Lucas's collar, shaking him. "Please, Lucas, choose my plan. Clara isn't on her level. She's weak. Only with Clara can I stay your wife. Only with her do I feel safe." Lucas looked at his broken wife and realized something bitter. To protect Helena from his mother, he had to destroy her by marrying another woman. Slowly, his hand moved to stroke Helena's hair. "Set up a meeting with the girl," he said flatly. Helena's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Do it quickly," he replied, turning away. "Before I change my mind," he added quietly, staring at the empty wall. "But remember one thing. Don't ever expect me to love her. My body may belong to her one day, but my heart is locked. You held the key, and you just threw it into the ocean." Helena ignored the last sentence. All that mattered was that Lucas agreed. That same afternoon, she made the call. "Hello, Clara. This is Mrs. Helena Whittemore. I'd like to discuss your father's treatment. Come to my office tomorrow morning, alone." At the other end, Clara's voice trembled with confusion and fear. She had no idea that this phone call was the beginning of a fate that would upend her life. New York Heart Institute. The hospital smell was unmistakable, a mix of disinfectant, alcohol, and suspended fear. In the waiting room of New York Heart Institute, Clara Evans sat clutching her worn canvas bag. Her eyes were swollen as she stared at the double white doors.
The administration must be completed as soon as possible so we can schedule the surgery, the doctor said. Clara nodded weakly. After the doctor left, she sank back into her chair. Her shoulders slumped. Where would the money come from? The surgery cost nearly $13,000, an impossible amount. Her internship salary at the real estate company owned by the Whitmore family barely covered rent and daily meals. Government insurance was no help either. Her father's policy had lapsed years ago, back when he was still healthy but unemployed. Her phone vibrated inside her worn bag. Clara glanced at the cracked screen. Mrs. Helena Whitmore. Her heart dropped. Mrs. Whitmore was her direct superior, the wife of Lucas Whitmore, the company's CEO. Clara rarely interacted with Helena except for minor administrative matters. Why is she calling this early? Did I do something wrong? Am I getting fired? Hello, good morning, Mrs. Whitmore, Clara answered politely, forcing steadiness into her hoarse voice. Clara, where are you? I'll be late for work today, ma'am. I'm at the hospital. My father... I know. HR already informed me. I want to talk about that. About your father. Come to my office now. Don't go through the secretary. Come straight in. You have 15 minutes. The line went dead. Clara stared at her phone in confusion. About my father? Is the company offering a loan? A spark of hope flickered in her chest. She wiped her tears quickly, dabbed light powder on her face so she wouldn't look pitiful, and rushed to book a rideshare. Helena's office, Midtown Manhattan. Helena's office on the 15th floor was vast and cold. The glass walls displayed a sweeping view of New York City, majestic and cruelly indifferent to Clara's shrinking world. Helena sat behind her large executive desk, her expression stiff. There were no work documents on the table, only a brown folder and a check placed face down. Sit, Clara, Helena ordered flatly. Clara sat across from her, clasping her hands tightly in her lap. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry I look a bit messy. Helena studied her. It was easy, too easy. Smooth, sun-kissed skin, wide, clear eyes that reflected untouched innocence. Clara was beautiful in a quiet way, the kind often overlooked but deeply captivating when observed closely. Helena's chest tightened. Is this the woman who will replace me in my own hell? I heard your father needs urgent heart surgery, Helena said bluntly. Yes, ma'am, his condition is critical. How much will it cost? Around $13,000, including post-op care. Helena nodded slowly. She flipped the check over and slid it across the desk. Clara's eyes widened. $19,500? Ma'am, what is this money? If this is a company loan, my salary... It's not a loan, Helena said calmly, locking eyes with her. It's a dowry. Clara blinked. A dowry? Helena stood, walked around the desk, and leaned against its edge directly in front of her. I want you to get married today. If you agree, the money is released immediately and your father can undergo surgery this afternoon. Clara felt dizzy. Married? To whom, ma'am? I don't even have a boyfriend. Helena took a deep breath. It's time I say it, she said quietly. To my husband, Lucas Whitmore. Silence. The ticking wall clock sounded thunderous. Clara stared at Helena, waiting for a laugh, a sign of a cruel joke. There was none. But Mr. Lucas is your husband, she stammered. You two look happy. I don't understand. We are not happy, Helena snapped, then quickly reined herself in. We need a child. I'm infertile. The doctors have confirmed it. I will never be able to have children. My mother-in-law has threatened to separate us if Lucas doesn't remarry. She leaned closer.
I don't want a divorce, Clara. I love Lucas, and I refuse to let him marry a woman chosen by my mother, someone who would erase me from this house. So I chose you." Clara stood up abruptly, her body shaking. "No, ma'am, this is insane. I respect you. I respect Mr. Lucas. I can't destroy someone else's marriage. I'm not that woman." "You're not destroying anything," Helena interrupted, standing as well. "I'm the legal wife. I'm the one asking. Where's the sin if I give permission?" "The sin is here." Clara pressed her hand to her chest. "I don't love Mr. Lucas. He doesn't know me. What kind of marriage is that? I'm sorry, ma'am. I need money, but I won't sell myself." She turned toward the door. "Clara, wait." "Excuse me, ma'am." She twisted the doorknob. Locked. "Your father will die today if you walk out that door." Helena's scream froze Clara in place. Tears slid down Clara's face. She knew it was true. Without that money, her father wouldn't survive. Helena approached her slowly, her heels sinking into the plush carpet. "I know I'm cruel for using your situation," Helena said quietly, "but I'm desperate too. I have no other choice." Then Helena did the unthinkable. The elegant executive, respected, feared, fell to her knees. "Mrs. Whitmore, please don't." Clara panicked, trying to lift her. Helena clung to Clara's legs, sobbing. "Please," Helena cried, "lend me your womb. That's all I ask. I don't need you to be a real wife. Give me one child, just one heir for Lucas. After that, you may leave. You can keep the money. I'll even give you a house for you and your father." Clara broke down. The CEO's wife kneeling before an intern, a woman's dignity shattered for love. "Please get up," begged Clara, kneeling too. "You are my superior." Helena looked up, her makeup ruined by tears. "In this room, I'm not your boss," she said softly. "I'm just a terrified wife. Please, Clara, save my marriage, and I'll save your father's life. We help each other." Clara's phone buzzed again. A message from her cousin at the hospital. "Sis, Dad is struggling to breathe again. His oxygen levels keep dropping. The doctors need confirmation of payment." Clara stared at her phone, then at Helena, then at the check on the desk. Her world closed in. On one side, her dignity. On the other, her father's life. She knew she would never forgive herself if he died because of pride. "What are the conditions?" she whispered. Helena stood instantly, hope flashing across her face. She grabbed the brown folder. "A prenuptial agreement," she said, handing it over. The terms were simple and brutal. "You'll marry him, privately or legally if needed for the birth certificate. You'll live in our house. All your needs will be covered." She flipped to the final page. "After the baby is born and 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding, you must agree to divorce. Full custody goes to Lucas and me. You will make no claims and disappear from our lives forever." Clara's chest tightened. She would be a factory. 9 months of pregnancy, 6 months of nursing, then discarded. "What if I fall in love with the child?" she asked faintly. "That's a risk you must kill," Helena replied coldly. "Remember, $19,500 up front and $32,500 after you leave. Total $52,000. Enough to start over." Clara closed her eyes. Her father's pale face flashed in her mind. His proud smile at her graduation. "Fine," she said hollowly. "I agree." Helena exhaled deeply and handed her a pen. Clara signed. The black ink felt like blood, selling her future. At that moment, the door opened. Lucas walked in, looking exhausted. He froze when he saw Clara's tear-streaked face and Helena clutching the folder. "Helena," he turned to Clara. "You're Clara?" Clara bowed her head deeply, unable to look at the man who would soon be her husband, a man who loved another woman. "It's done," Helena said softly, handing Lucas the folder. "She agreed. She's willing to help us." Lucas took it, his gaze never leaving Clara. She looked small, fragile, broken. He felt like the worst villain alive. "Clara," Lucas said heavily, "please forgive us. I don't know what to say, but I promise I will never hurt you physically. This is only a formality." His kindness made Clara want to cry even more. "I'm doing this for my father, sir. Please make sure the money is released.
Down below, in the lobby of the building, Clara ran toward the ride already waiting for her. She cried uncontrollably behind the helmet that smelled stale and worn. She had just saved her father's life, yet it felt as though she had killed a part of her own soul. The wedding was scheduled for 3 days later. No celebration, no white gown, no love. A wedding without smiles. That day, the sky over New York was a deep, suffocating gray, as if mourning the tragedy unfolding inside the living room of Lucas and Helena's luxury apartment. There were no flower arches, no decorated tents, no congratulatory bouquets, only a marriage officiant, 2 paid witnesses sworn to secrecy, and the 3 main actors in this quiet disaster: Lucas, Helena, and Clara. Clara sat with her head lowered beside Lucas. She wore a simple white dress that once belonged to Helena, hastily altered with safety pins at the waist. Her innocent face was touched with light makeup, applied by Helena herself. Across the table, the officiant reviewed the documents for a private religious marriage, binding them spiritually, yet hidden from the law and society. "Lucas Whitmore, son of Harold Whitmore." "I do," Lucas answered. His voice was heavy, hollow. His eyes stared blankly ahead, as though looking through the wall. "I hereby unite you in marriage with Clara Hayes, daughter of Andrew Hayes, with a dowry of $20,000, paid in full." Lucas's hand was cold and damp as he shook the officiant's. He took a long breath. In the corner of the room, Helena stood leaning against a display cabinet, her fingers gripping the edge so tightly her nails turned white. This was her plan, her script, yet watching it unfold felt like swallowing nails. "I accept this marriage," Lucas said quickly, without pause, as though desperate to expel poison from his mouth. "Witnesses?" "Valid." "Valid." The word echoed through the room. Valid. One word that changed everything. Clara was no longer an intern. She was a wife, and a vessel of hope. Helena closed her eyes briefly, holding back tears that threatened her composure. She forced a smile and stepped forward. "Congratulations." The word sounded foreign even to herself. Clara kissed the back of Lucas's hand with trembling lips. Lucas did not return the gesture. He did not kiss her forehead like a groom should. He gently pulled his hand away, stood up, and walked straight to the balcony, lighting a cigarette, a habit he had abandoned 5 years ago. Helena approached Clara, who remained frozen in her seat. "Stand up, Clara. The ceremony is over," Helena said quietly. Clara obeyed, her eyes glassy. "Don't call me Mrs. Helena. Call me Helena, at least inside this house." She turned away. "Go change. Don't wear that dress too long. It's my favorite." That night, the atmosphere in the apartment grew even heavier. Helena prepared dinner as usual. They sat together at the dining table, 3 people, yet miles apart. Clara ate with her head down, barely daring to chew. Lucas ate quickly, without tasting anything. "Finish your vegetables," Helena said suddenly. "You need nutrition. You're too thin." Clara flinched. "Yes, Helena." Lucas set his spoon down with a quiet clatter. "Don't treat her like a child, Helen. I'm treating her as the future mother of your child. Her health is this project's priority." The word project made Lucas nauseous. He pushed his plate away and left the table, turning on the TV loudly in the living room. Later that night, Helena led Clara down the hallway to a prepared guest room, fresh white sheets, jasmine-scented air, a dim bedside lamp. Helena had prepared it herself, imagining her husband with another woman on a bed she had carefully made. "This is your room." Clara hesitated at the doorway. "Thank you, Helena." "Go shower, wear what I left on the bed." On the bed lay a peach-colored satin nightgown, modest yet undeniably intimate. Clara's face flushed. "Do I really have to wear this?" "Lucas likes satin," Helena replied flatly. "Don't argue. Remember our agreement. The money is already transferred. Your father's surgery at the New York Heart Institute was successful. Now it's your turn to pay your debt." Clara swallowed hard, picturing her father smiling in recovery. "All right." Helena left the room and leaned against the hallway wall, clutching her chest as her heart raced wildly. At 10 p.m., Lucas was still pretending to watch television. "It's time," Helena said softly. Lucas looked at her in disbelief. "Tonight? When else? She's fertile according to her cycle." Lucas let out a dry laugh. "You schedule your husband with another woman like a board meeting." "Stop it," Helena said, gripping his arm. "Do this for me. You said you loved me." She pulled him toward the hallway. Each step felt like walking toward execution. At Clara's door, Helena whispered, "She's inside. She's ready." Lucas looked at her one last time. "Once I walk in there, nothing will ever be the same." Helena nodded through tears. "I know." She opened the door and pushed him inside. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, hugging her knees, pale with fear. Lucas turned back one more. "I'm sorry," he whispered into the darkness, unsure whether it was meant for Clara or for Helena crying beyond the door. That night, on the cold floor outside that locked door, Helena experienced her first death, the death of her marriage, her dignity, her heart. Inside the room, the lights went dark. "I'm sorry," Lucas whispered into the darkness, unsure whether it was meant for Clara or for Helena crying beyond the door. The wedding night passed without love, without laughter, without joy. Only two bodies bound by circumstance, and one shattered heart listening from the other side of the door. At the dining table, Helena was already seated, dressed impeccably, as if nothing had happened. She flipped through a business magazine with calm, practiced gestures, though her jaw was clenched tightly, holding back the ache in her chest. Clara arrived last. She wore loose house clothes that Helena had bought for her. She walked with her head lowered, nearly silent, heading straight for the kitchen to help Mrs. Ija prepare coffee. She carefully avoided Lucas's and Helena's gazes. "Clara," Helena called sharply, "sit here. Your job now is to take care of your health, not wash dishes." Clara flinched, then obeyed, sitting in the chair that had officially become hers, beside Lucas. Breakfast was a pitiful sight. Lucas held only his cup of coffee, not touching the fried rice Helena had prepared. Helena pretended to read her magazine. Clara took 2 bites, then put her spoon down. The displaced queen. Clara's pregnancy, meant to be Helena's victory, felt instead like the beginning of a crushing defeat. The news was welcomed with excessive enthusiasm by Mrs. Whitmore, making the atmosphere in the apartment suffocating for Helena. The next day, Mrs. Whitmore arrived carrying luxurious gifts, not for Helena, but for Clara and the unborn child.
You must move to a bigger room, Mrs. Whitmore ordered, ignoring Helena, who sat beside Lucas on the sofa. Lucas, don't let this wife of yours get stressed. Move Clara to a room with more sunlight. All her food must be organic. She turned to Helena. You'll handle that. I've already prepared a full nutrition plan for Clara, Helena said, trying to maintain control. Mrs. Whitmore glanced at her coldly. A mother's instinct will never be the same as your diet charts, Helena. Clara is carrying a Whitmore grandchild. You couldn't give us one, so now you serve. The words struck Helena straight in the chest. From that moment on, Helena's status as lady of the house began to erode. Clara, now treated like royalty, tried desperately to stay humble. It's really fine, Mrs. Whitmore. I'm comfortable in the old room. Mrs. Whitmore didn't listen. Clara was moved to the largest, brightest guest room, ironically located directly across from Helena and Lucas's master bedroom. The most painful shift for Helena was Lucas's changing focus. Lucas had always been a gentle, attentive husband. Now, all that attention flowed towards Clara, whom he viewed as a fragile incubator. Lucas, I have a major presentation at the office today, Helena said a morning as Lucas read the newspaper. Oh, that's good, he replied absently, eyes fixed on a book titled First Trimester Pregnancy Guide. Clara, would you like ginger tea? It's good for nausea. Clara, sitting in a single armchair while stitching, looked up. It's okay, Lucas. I'm feeling better. No, I don't want you dehydrated. He stood and walked to the kitchen, leaving Helena alone at the coffee table. Helena felt herself pushed into second place, not only by Mrs. Whitmore, but by her own husband. Lucas wasn't acting out of love for Clara, but out of love for the unborn child and a long-awaited sense of fatherhood. Anything related to pregnancy he handled personally. He insisted on taking Clara to the OB/GYN every 2 weeks, even though Helena had arranged a private driver. Why do you have to go? You have meetings, Helena protested once. I need to make sure she and the baby are fine, Lucas said firmly, putting on his jacket. I need to hear the heartbeat myself. He paused. You wouldn't understand, Helena. Those words stabbed her again and again. Helena, the architect of this entire scenario, had become an outsider in her own project. Her days were now spent monitoring Clara's meals, her stress levels, her rest schedule. Helena maintained control only over logistics. What she couldn't control were the spontaneous moments of intimacy between Lucas and Clara. When Clara fell asleep on the couch after taking anti-nausea medicine, Lucas would quietly cover her with a blanket. When Clara suddenly craved green mangoes at midnight, Lucas would go searching for them. Simple actions, but they pierced Helena deeper than any kiss ever could. That was love born of shared sacrifice, not desire. Helena tried to fight back. On the nights it was her turn with Lucas, she tried to be the perfect wife. She cooked his favorite meals. She massaged him. She even became more proactive in bed. I just want to sleep, Helena, Lucas said, turning his back to her. I'm exhausted. Work, my mother, Clara. My head hurts. Helena stared at his back in the dark room. The pain turned into anger. You sleep with another woman out of duty, yet reject me because you're tired? She realized Lucas only wanted her when he wasn't drowning in guilt. By Clara's second month of pregnancy, her belly still wasn't visible, but the emotional bond between Lucas and the unborn child had already solidified, quietly eliminating Helena from their domestic life. Helena retreated more often into her home office. The apartment she had designed with such elegance now felt like a gilded cage. One night, unable to sleep, she went to the kitchen for a glass of cold water. As she passed the hallway, she noticed Clara's bedroom door slightly open. Soft light spilled into the corridor. She stopped. Her heart pounded. She hadn't planned to spy, but jealousy, long suppressed by logic, rebelled. She stepped closer. What she saw made her knees go weak. Lucas was asleep, not turned away from Clara like he always was with Helena, but holding her from behind. Clara lay on her side, Lucas's arm wrapped around her waist, his palm resting protectively over her still flat stomach. It was the most intimate sleeping position. Protection, comfort, possession. Lucas looked peaceful, relaxed in a way Helena hadn't seen in years. She heard his voice, barely a whisper. "Grow strong, sweetheart. Daddy has waited so long for you." The whisper, meant for the unborn child, stabbed Helena straight through the heart. That wasn't just a promise. It was an emotional confession. Lucas hadn't found peace with Clara. He had found peace with the future Clara carried. Helena stepped back from the door, unable to breathe. Her carefully written script had collapsed. She had not just rented Clara's womb, she had unknowingly sold the last fragments of Lucas's heart. She fled silently to the master bedroom, locked the door, and slid down beside the bed and cried without sound. Hot tears soaked her silk pajamas. She regretted everything. Deeply. Truly. She had lost Lucas not to a homewrecker, but to his love for a child and a future she could never give him. The crack in Helena's plan did not make her surrender. Pain and jealousy transformed into destructive energy, redirected towards the only target she could blame: Clara. By Clara's 3rd month of pregnancy, Helena became a ruthless overseer. "Why are you eating that, Clara? Crackers are full of preservatives and MSG. I told you this child must be organic," Helena snapped one afternoon, as Clara ate a snack Mrs. Ija had bought. "I'm sorry. I've been craving it," Clara replied softly, her eyes watering. "Cravings are just excuses for weakness," Helena said coldly, snatching the packet away. "You need to be strong. This child is the Whitmore future. Don't ruin it with your indulgence." Lucas, witnessing the scene, only sighed. He knew Helena was jealous, but he couldn't face the conflict directly. Instead, he comforted Clara quietly after Helena left. The final fracture came on a Friday afternoon. Clara was cleaning Lucas's small music studio, despite being forbidden by both of them, when she accidentally knocked over a framed Polaroid photo. It shattered. The picture showed Helena and Lucas during their honeymoon in Hawaii. Glass scattered everywhere. Clara panicked and knelt to clean it up. That was when Helena came home. "Oh my God, Clara!" Helena screamed. "What is wrong with you? Are you blind?" "I'm sorry, Helena. I'll replace it," Clara stammered. "Replace it?" Helena laughed bitterly. "You think this can be replaced? This is history. You have no manners, no ethics. Did you break it on purpose because you want to take my—"
Lucas didn't care about the shattered glass. What he saw instead was the fragility behind Clara's eyes as she hid behind the door moments earlier. Without another word, Lucas grabbed Helena's wrist and dragged her into their master bedroom. Bang! The door slammed shut, making Helena flinch. "What, have you completely lost control, Helena?" Lucas shouted, his voice thick with disappointment. "What did Clara do wrong? She only broke a picture frame. Why did you drag this into accusations about manners, ethics, and claiming she wants to steal your place?" "Because that is what she wants," Helena snapped back. "She's spoiled now, Lucas. She's using her pregnancy to take you away from me. I see the way you look at her. You're getting closer every day." "Of course I'm close to her," Lucas roared. "She's my wife. She's carrying my child. She's vulnerable. I don't want anything to happen to my baby because of your unreasonable stress." Helena froze. Unreasonable stress. Those words shattered her. "So you're taking her side?" she asked quietly. "You trust her more than your legal wife of 5 years?" "I'm protecting my child," Lucas replied sharply. "Clara is carrying our future. If you can't control your emotions and keep disturbing her, maybe you should leave for a while." The words slipped out, but the damage was irreversible. "You should leave." Lucas watched Helena's face crumble instantly. The composure she'd been holding cracked into raw despair. "Fine," Helena whispered. She walked to her wardrobe, pulled out a small suitcase, and began packing a few clothes with trembling hands. "Helena, wait! I didn't mean to throw you out." Lucas stepped closer, regret flooding in too late. "No," Helena replied calmly. "You're right, I should leave. This house is sick because of me. I should go so your child can be born in peace." She snapped the suitcase shut with a sharp click. Helena grabbed her car keys and walked toward the door without looking back. "I need to be alone, Lucas. Don't look for me. I'll come back when I'm ready to face this reality." Lucas stood frozen. He didn't stop her. The argument had drained him completely. Part of him felt relief. The tension was gone. Another part of him felt crushing guilt. He let Helena go. After the door closed behind her, Lucas exhaled deeply and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence felt strange. "Maybe this really is for the best," he murmured to himself. Then he remembered Clara. He needed to apologize. Lucas walked to Clara's bedroom and knocked. No answer. "Clara, I'm sorry about what happened earlier. Don't worry, Helena just needs time." He opened the door gently. The room was dark, the curtains were drawn. Clara lay on the bed, hugging a pillow. "Clara, are you okay?" Lucas stepped closer. She didn't move. Then a small, restrained sob escaped her lips. "Lucas." Lucas turned on the light. Clara's face was pale, her lips trembling. She tried to sit up, but clutched her abdomen. "My stomach hurts so much." "We're going to the hospital, now," Lucas said, panic flooding his voice. He tried to lift her, then froze. The white bedsheet beneath Clara was stained. Red. "Oh my God," Lucas whispered, his face draining of color. He scooped Clara into his arms. "Please, Lucas, save our baby," Clara cried weakly, clutching his shirt. Lucas ran down the stairs, carrying her towards his car, heart pounding violently. In his panic, there was only one person he blamed: Helena. The stress and jealousy Helena created had endangered the life of the child they had sacrificed everything for. "Hold on, Clara, hold on," Lucas whispered as he sped through the rain-soaked streets towards the nearest hospital. He prayed silently. He couldn't lose this baby, not after everything. At the hospital, sirens wailed through the night. Lucas drove like a man possessed, running red lights as Clara lay weak beside him, clutching her tightening abdomen. Blood continued to seep. "Stay with me, Clara, we're almost there," he shouted, whether to her or himself he didn't know. At New York International Medical Center, Lucas carried Clara into the emergency unit. "My wife is bleeding, 3 months pregnant, please." Clara was rushed inside. Lucas was left alone in the cold waiting area, collapsing onto a plastic chair, soaked in sweat and streaked with her blood. A nurse approached gently. "Sir, please stay calm. We're stabilizing Mrs. Clara, but does she have a history of high blood pressure or extreme stress recently?" Lucas went silent. Extreme stress? Yes, and it was all their fault. He nodded stiffly. "She's been under a lot of pressure." 20 agonizing minutes later, Lucas was allowed into the treatment room. Clara lay weak, an IV in her arm.
Dr. Maya stood beside her, face tense. "Mr. Lucas, please sign this consent form," Dr. Maya said, handing him a file. "Mrs. Clara is experiencing extreme premature contractions caused by emotional stress. We suspect a serious complication, possibly preeclampsia. There's a risk of miscarriage or premature delivery." Lucas's hands trembled as he took the folder. At that moment, he realized he needed Helena. He grabbed his phone and called Helena. Helena. Helena was driving aimlessly along the Newark outskirts of New Jersey, her phone turned off, trying to escape the guilt crushing her chest. But guilt drove faster. Her phone rang again. She answered. "Hello? Helena, the baby is in danger! Come to the hospital now! Clara is bleeding!" "This is because of you, Helena," he shouted. "Because of your jealousy. If anything happens to my child, I will never forgive you. Ever." The line went dead. Helena's tears dried instantly. Guilt turned to ice-cold fear. She slammed the accelerator and turned back towards the hospital. The final turning point. Helena arrived disheveled, eyes swollen, hair undone. She found hell in the hallway. Lucas stood there, blood-stained, hollow-eyed. She reached for his hand. He stepped back. "Don't touch me," Lucas said coldly. "Are you satisfied? You almost killed our child." Helena staggered back. "I didn't mean to," Lucas sobbed. "I'm sorry." "Sorry won't bring back a life," he cut her off, turning away. Lucas had drawn a line. His priority was no longer Helena, but the unborn child inside Clara. Helena stood alone, accepting her punishment. Later, a nurse allowed them into Clara's room. Clara opened her eyes weakly. She looked at Lucas, then at Helena. "Helena," her voice barely audible. Helena stepped closer, kneeling beside the bed. "I'm so sorry, Clara. This is my fault," she sobbed. Clara shook her head faintly and reached for Helena's hand. "Please don't cry," she whispered. "I know this isn't your fault. I know you love Lucas. I just wanted to keep our promise." She took a slow breath. "If the doctors have to choose, please save the baby. Let me go." Helena gasped. All jealousy evaporated, replaced by deep respect. Clara wasn't naive. She was selfless. The monitors suddenly began to beep violently, blood pressure dropping, fetal heart rate weakening. "Mr. Lucas, Mrs. Helena, please step out. We need to act now." Clara was rushed into surgery. Lucas and Helena collapsed against the wall together, united only by fear. The operating light flickered, then went dark. The door opened. Dr. Maya stepped out, exhaustion in her eyes. "We did everything we could," she said quietly. "The situation is extremely critical. Mrs. Clara suffered acute placental abruption, triggered by extreme stress and blood pressure." She paused. "The baby cried."
We had to perform an emergency cesarean section to save the fetus. If we had delayed even one more minute, both lives would have been in danger. Lucas gripped Helena's arm tightly. "So, what about my child, doctor?" "We managed to deliver the baby," Dr. Maya answered, her voice steady and relieving. "A baby boy. However, he was born extremely premature. At 32 weeks, his weight is below normal. We had to transfer him immediately to the NICU." Helena held her breath. "And Clara?" she asked quietly. "How is she?" "We were able to stop the bleeding. She is stable, but she hasn't regained consciousness due to shock and extreme exhaustion. She is under intensive observation. To be honest, we cannot promise anything about her recovery. It may take a very long time. There's a possibility she could fall into a coma." Lucas staggered, as if struck. Helena quickly supported him. The plan they had designed, the agreement they signed, the promise that Clara would give birth and then leave, was now threatened by a fate far crueler than any contract. The NICU. After Lucas regained his composure, he and Helena were allowed into the neonatal intensive care unit. they stood before a glass incubator. Inside lay a tiny, fragile body, reddish skin, chest rising and falling rapidly, connected to tubes and wires. Lucas pressed his palm against the glass. The anger that had hardened his face for months dissolved completely. He closed his eyes. Then, from inside the incubator came a small, hoarse, but powerful sound. Wah, wah. It was their son's first cry, the cry Lucas had waited to hear 5 years, the cry that had shattered a marriage, demanded Clara's sacrifice, and carved deep wounds into Helena's heart. The sound broke every remaining wall inside him. Lucas collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, tears streaking down the incubator's glass. This was no longer the cry of an angry husband. It was the cry of a father, grateful for a miracle that came at a devastating cost. Helena cried as well. Her tears were different. They were tears of gratitude, love, and, deepest of all, regret. She looked at the tiny face that would now be called her child. "Lucas," Helena whispered, "don't say anything." "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel," Lucas replied, still crying. "I'm happy, but I'm terrified." "He needs a name," Helena said softly, wiping Lucas's tears. Lucas stared at the baby. "Arya. His name is Arya. Arya Whittemore." Arya, meaning noble warrior, a massive hope placed on impossibly small shoulders. A fragile truce. The next morning, after ensuring Arya was stable in the NICU and Helena remained unconscious under intensive care, Lucas and Helena sat in the hospital cafeteria. Lucas looked calmer, though exhaustion still lingered in his eyes. Helena held a cup of coffee, studying her husband. "Lucas," she began quietly, firmly, "I won't apologize again. My apology last night meant nothing." Lucas turned to her, listening. "But I need to be honest. I was jealous, not because you touched Clara, but because I saw you happy near her. I was afraid our love wasn't as strong as I believed. I was afraid you found peace somewhere outside of me." She inhaled deeply. "I designed this plan. I brought Clara into our lives, and I destroyed her because of my selfishness. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know I've seen Clara's goodness. She asked me to save Arya, not herself. She is sincere." Lucas was silent for a long time. Then he sighed. "I'm sorry too, Helena. I agreed to this insane plan. I used Clara, and I blamed you. We're both guilty. We turned Clara into a victim of our egos and family pressure." "So, what now?" Helena asked, her chest feeling slightly lighter. "We focus on Arya and Clara," Lucas replied. "My mother knows about her grandson. She may come today. We face her together." He paused. "But promise me this. If Clara wakes up, she must be treated with dignity. She's no longer part of a contract. She's the mother of my child. I won't divorce her until she fully recovers and can decide for herself." Helena nodded without hesitation. "I promise. Until she wakes up, I'll care for her. I'll raise Arya. I started this, and I'll finish it the right way." That moment became their first healing, not as passionate lovers, but as partners owning the chaos they created. Mrs. Whittemore's resistance. Their first challenge arrived swiftly. Mrs. Whittemore stormed into the hospital with extravagant flower arrangements, demanding to see her grandson. After admiring Arya, she turned sharply to Helena. "And Clara?" she asked coldly. "She's still unconscious in intensive observation," Lucas answered. "And the contract?" Mrs. Whittemore pressed. "The child is born. Arrange the divorce as soon as she wakes. Helena, make sure Arya's birth certificate lists only your name. Keep the inheritance clean." Lucas stiffened. "I will not divorce Clara, Mother. Not until she recovers." "Foolish," Mrs. Whittemore hissed. "She was just a tool. The tool has served its purpose." Helena stepped forward calmly. "No," she said firmly. "Clara will not be divorced until she fully recovers. She is not a tool. She saved your bloodline. She is Arya's biological mother. I asked her to do this, and I will guarantee her dignity in this house." Mrs. Whittemore was stunned. For the first time, Helena, the obedient daughter-in-law, stood her ground. Lucas looked at Helena with quiet admiration. Helena's mission had changed, not control, but redemption. 6 months later. 6 months passed since Arya Whittemore's premature birth. The once fragile baby now laughed, rolled over, and grew strong, under strict medical supervision and, most importantly, Helena's unwavering love. Clara, meanwhile, still lay unconscious in the guest room, transformed into a private recovery ward. Helena had changed completely. No designer suits, no rigid schedules, no jealousy in her eyes. She wore simple house dresses, hair loosely tied, dividing her days between caring for Arya and Clara. Every morning she bathed Clara, changed her clothes, gently massaged her limbs, and read books aloud. "She can grab my finger now," Helena whispered one afternoon. "He looks like you, Clara. Big eyes." She wiped Clara's face with a warm cloth. "I miss you. Wake up. I want you to scold me for raising him my way, not yours." Lucas watched it all. His love for Helena returned, but deeper, purer. "You're an incredible mother, Helena," he said one night, finding her asleep beside Clara's bed, holding her hand. "I'm not his mother," Helena replied softly. "I'm just paying for my mistakes." "You're Arya's mother in heart," Lucas said, "and you care for Clara like a sister." Awakening. Exactly 6 months and 3 days after Arya's premature birth, the impossible happened. Helena was reading a children's story beside Clara's bed. The Queen finally realized that true love is sacrifice, not possession. She closed the book and smiled at Clara. "Wake up. Your story is just beginning." Suddenly, Clara's fingers moved. Helena froze. Slowly, Clara's eyelids opened. "Helena," Clara whispered weakly. "Yes, I'm here," Helena sobbed as she pressed the emergency button. Clara recovered slowly, but her memory was intact. Her first question was about her father, then about the baby. When Clara held Arya, she broke down in tears. A week later, Clara asked to speak with Helena alone. "The contract is over," Clara said quietly. "Arya no longer needs exclusive breastfeeding. I'm healthy. I'm ready to leave, go back to my hometown, care for my father, and live my life." Helena retrieved the old agreement, the one signed 8 months ago. "Yes," Helena said calmly, "the contract is over." She tore it apart. Once, twice, into fragments. "This contract no longer exists," Helena said. "You're free." She knelt beside Clara. "Arya is our child, born of your blood and my tears. Choose your destiny, not because of money, not because of contracts." Lucas entered quietly and knelt beside Clara. "We'll learn," he said. "We'll become an unconventional family, built on honesty and redemption." Clara smiled. A sincere smile, for the first time since entering that house. "I'll stay," she said softly, "as Arya's mother." That day, Clara chose love, not $52,000, not obligation. They never became a normal family. They became something harder and truer.